What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the apocalypse, or just another day. We'll see how things shake out. A couple months back, I was watching a travel YouTube channel, and they mentioned a couple cities outside the United States that they had visited as tourists, and they felt the locals always seemed rude. This is nothing new. As long as we've had humans, we've had rude humans. You could be one of them right now. But these days, some places have more than their share of rude people. A travel website ran a survey from June to December of 2020 where they asked travel professionals from North America, South America, and Europe what cities have they experienced the most unfriendly and rude locals. They came up with 56 cities across the globe that were most frequently listed as having rude residents. I took the top 30 and asked people in a survey targeting travelers to list the 3 cities they felt had the rudest locals. This list is ranked by their responses. In full disclosure though, a couple that made the list I excluded because we already did a US cities one. If I had included them, New York would have been number 3 and Boston would have been number 5, and also LA and Atlantic City would have been 11 and 12, just so you know. Alright, let's take a look. Number 10, Buenos Aires, Argentina. Buenos Aires is a beautiful city and it serves as the capital of Argentina. And it was voted as the rudest city in South America and the 10th rudest city on the planet. Buenos Aires has about 3 million residents, with almost 13 million living in their entire metro area. This place has a lot of people, and a lot of people that don't like you just because you visited their city. One man said that he was a tour guide there for many years, said a lot of the locals have no time for you, and before smartphones, they would often send you in the wrong direction when you asked for directions. He told a story about how one of his customers asked some local where something was, and the guy gave him directions, and he went there, and he finally realized that the directions the guy gave him would have led him about 300 or 400 yards off the pier. A lot of other people visiting Buenos Aires claim that it's become too much like an American city. It's like they've, in a lot of ways, abandoned their culture and the traditions that this city has. Some people refer to it as the Paris of South America. And if you know anything about Paris, which you'll see later on this list, they're rude. And I guess Buenos Aires decided to be fashionable and rude. 37% of the respondents had Buenos Aires in their top 3 rudest cities on the planet. Number 9, Monte Carlo, Monaco. Monte Carlo is the capital of the Principality of Monaco, and it always seems to show up in James Bond type movies. Monte Carlo is one of the most popular tourist destinations in Europe, attracting spies and millions of tourists each year. Most show up for the Grand Prix. This is a big event here. They have a F1 race every single year, except pandemic times, that takes up about a third of the country. Keep in mind, this country is smaller than New York City's Central Park. It's not that big. And one thing you'll learn as this list goes on, apparently rudeness has become an art form in this part of the globe. There's a lot of cities from this general area that are extremely rude. This city has what is considered favorable residency laws. This has led to a lot of celebrities and very rich people becoming citizens of this small country and this city. Basically what it breaks down to is there's so many freaking rich people that live here, it makes it hard for ordinary visitors to, kind of fit in and get with things here. When you visit, apparently you get that feeling like you're a stray dog. There's just a certain amount of neglect. Nobody pays attention to you. They just kind of walk past you. On top of that, this is one of the most expensive cities to visit on the planet. I imagine that plays into people feeling like they're rude here just because, you go to get a beer and it costs you $30. That's kind of rude. 41% of the respondents had Monte Carlo in their top 3. Number 8, London. London is an extremely historic and dreary city. It's always cloudy. It's like living in Portland, Oregon all the time, just without all the hippies. During normal times, London sees close to 70 million visitors every single year. And most complain that they get the cold shoulder from the locals. They don't have any time for them, don't want to talk to them most of the time unless they're working in the tourism industry. One man said in 2019 he visited London, he stayed there for 5 days, and in 4 different pubs, one of the patrons and locals asked him what the hell's going on with our politics here in the United States and what's wrong with us. Now, if you're coming from Canada or the United States, chances are you're not going to have a language barrier you got to jump over in London. So I guess that makes it easier for them to ask us what the hell's going on with our politics. Besides rude residents, most visitors complain that all the attractions are way overpriced. Now, this could be said for any place tourists show up, but I guess it's pretty bad in London. 44% of the respondents had London in their top 3. Number 7, Beijing, China. There's a lot of complaints tourists have about Beijing, and one of the biggest ones is how rude the locals are. And they don't even try and hide it. If you try and talk to them or there's some kind of communication, they just have this look of disgust on their face that they have to deal with you or you're there or whatever. Another big complaint tourists have about Beijing is in most countries, it's not hard to find someone in the hospitality industry, wherever it's the hotel or an attraction, that can speak whatever language you happen to be speaking. This isn't much of a thing in Beijing. It's like if you don't understand Chinese, you better have a tour guide. Over and over, I kept reading things where get a tour guide if you go to Beijing. Beijing is China's capital city, and it is also like the capital of poor air quality for the planet too. So keep that in mind if you're going to visit. 46% of the respondents had Beijing in their top 3 rudest cities. Number 6, Marrakesh, Morocco. Have you ever heard of Marrakesh, Morocco? Not many people have, but it is a very interesting and historic city. One of the biggest complaints most tourists have about Marrakesh is the haggling. That's just the way they do business, but if you're a Westerner, sometimes that seems a little rude, the way they do it. It's a little aggressive, but that's just their culture, and I think it's misunderstood, honestly. Haggling's a little interesting if you're like, say, from the United States or Canada. The first 4 or 5 times you do it, but if you're there for a few days, you find yourself in a shop someplace going, can I just give you the $5 American for the lamp and not have to spend 30 minutes of my day trying to talk you down $1.50? And it's not just the shopkeepers. They have a lot of street people that are always asking for money. They want money, whatever. They're trying to sell you something. There's always some kind of scam, it seems like, and you just have to be wary. One of the first things they tell you about Marrakesh is keep your wallet in your front pocket and maybe put your backpack on the front too, because they've got a serious thing with pickpockets here. And that is rude. When someone reaches into your backpack while you're walking down the road and takes a bunch of your crap, yeah, most of us consider that rude. 46% of the respondents had Marrakesh in their top 3. Number 5, Cannes, France. Every spring, the Cannes Film Festival attracts the rich and famous. This is one of the most prestigious film festivals every single year. Many filmmakers were nobodies until they did really well at this festival. When the festival is over, it's still a seaside town in the French Riviera where most of the locals would rather you not be there. If you pull up in a giant yacht, you might get a different reception compared to if you pulled up in the tour bus. Cannes has quite the reputation for having a bunch of snobs living within the city limits. One travel agent said if you're trying to plan a budget visit to Cannes, just don't. 56% of respondents had Cannes in their top 3. Number 4, Frankfurt, Germany. In my experience, the only ones that outrude the French are the Germans, and Frankfurt is leading the pack when it comes to German rudeness. I did a video some years back on the worst airports in the world. Now, Frankfurt wasn't one of the worst, but it kept popping up as having rude people work there. Like, people complain that there's 0 customer service at this airport. It's just matter of fact, point blank, and very transactional. There's no nuance to the way the Germans deal with you at the Frankfurt airport. They're almost like Buddhists trying to achieve nirvana, but Germans are trying to achieve abrasiveness. 59% of the people surveyed had Frankfurt, Germany in their top 3. Number 3, Moscow, Russia. Now, long before they decided to attack Ukraine, Moscow, Russia was labeled as having rude people. It's not just Moscow. Moscow's leading the pack, but St. Petersburg was like number 13. Travel agents often suggest that you go in a group, like with a whole group, to visit Moscow, just so you can always see a friendly face, you know? Russians are very much like Germans when it comes to just the facts type attitude towards everything, and to a lot of Westerners, it seems very, very cold and business like whenever you're talking to someone about something. 66% of the people surveyed had Moscow in their top 3. Number 2, Milan, Italy. While reading different travel blogs about Milan, there seems to be a lot of advice on taking guided tours, and they'll take advantage of you and be very careful, and just all these different things. That seems to be a theme for Milan, Italy. And if you feel like you're getting ripped off by a tour guide, you know it's got some problems, and people are going to think the whole place is rude or unfriendly. The residents of Milan have a reputation for being kind of self-absorbed. Combine that with the pickpockets they got, your money, your stuff, and your emotions are not safe in Milan, Italy. One guy described dealing with people in Milan. He said he felt like he stepped into a Saturday Night Live skit where they're just trying to be Euro rude type thing. 72% of the people surveyed had Milan, Italy in their top 3 rudest cities on the planet. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead, do it. It costs you nothing, and it's not like we spam you with emails or something like that. It just really helps out the channel. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Paris. In case you're confused with Paris, Texas, I'm talking about the one in Paris, France. One guy described the people of Paris, France like everyone there acts like they're the hot girl at school and you're some desperate troll that just wandered into town from underneath his bridge. The rudeness and unfriendliness of Paris is legendary. And it's not just to North Americans or South Americans or Central Americans. People from Japan think France is rude. People from Europe think Paris is rude. Even people in France think Paris is rude. One man said there was a street performer that was rapping, and he was rapping about how he hated Americans and wished they would quit coming to France. And then he flipped off this older couple that was obviously from the United States or Canada while he was performing. You gotta have some balls. You're trying to get people to donate money to your little hat there, and you're talking trash about it and flipping off your audience. Smooth. So that's just the people and the locals. France has put a lot of money over the years, millions, to get tourists to come there. The city attracts over 20 million people a year. They got this reputation for being this romantic city and the city of lights and all that good stuff, but the people just aren't on board and they would rather you not come. I mean, if you're a shop owner or a guy that does tours in Paris, I'm sure you love to see people show up and spend money, but the locals just don't like you. And they're rude and unfriendly. In Seattle, they have a thing called the Seattle Freeze. That's where a lot of the locals, they just don't try and make new friends. So if you move there, it's really hard to make friends in Seattle. It's just this thing they do there. Paris has their own version of it. It's called the Paris syndrome. And it's just this thing Parisians have where they're just unfriendly. 81% of the people surveyed had Paris as one of their top 3 cities that's just plain rude. All right, everyone, that's today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and don't be rude to each other.